If you've spent any time around weed in the last 20 years, you know this brand without even trying. That thin, see-through light brown rolling paper in the simple brown pack. It's everywhere. It's in dispensaries, gas stations, and smoke shops all over the planet, and it became the single most iconic rolling paper brand in all of cannabis culture. But the story behind it is way more complicated than the natural, wholesome image on the package. Because some of the very claims that helped build this empire ended up getting challenged in court. This is the story of Raw. So let's start with the man behind it, because Raw is really the story of one guy, Josh Kesselman. And Josh isn't just some faceless CEO. He's the loud, obsessive, ever-present face of the whole brand. As the story goes, it started when he was just a kid. He'd watch his dad light a thin rolling paper and toss it flaming into the air like a little magic trick. And something about it captured him completely, leading it to become a lifelong obsession of his. As he grew up, that obsession only got deeper. He started collecting rare rolling papers, trading them with other enthusiasts over in Europe, and studying where they came from. Now, before Raw ever existed, Josh was deep in the smoking business. Back in the 1990s, he ran a head shop, and I'll be honest about this part because it's documented, and the brand's marketing tends to skip it. But his shop actually got raided by federal authorities over paraphernalia, and he ended up pleading guilty and taking a fine and house arrest over what happened. It was definitely a rough chapter, but he bounced back, moved out west, and started a company importing and making rolling papers. He launched a couple of paper brands first, including Elements Rolling Papers and Juicy J's, and then, in 2005, he introduced the one that would change everything, Raw. And the whole idea behind it was to be different from every other paper on the market. At the time, most rolling papers were bright white because they were bleached. Josh's pitch was that Raw was natural, unbleached hemp paper, less processed than what else was out there, which gave it that signature translucent light brown look. It looked raw, hence the name. In a sea of identical white papers, including long-established brands like Rizla and OCB, that natural brown sheet instantly stood out on the shelf, and people noticed. Now let's talk about what actually makes the paper distinct, because it's not just the color. Raw uses unbleached hemp paper as its base, which is a specific choice that sets it apart from rice paper alternatives, or the standard wood pulp papers most brands were using. And beyond the material, Raw has a special feature pressed right into the paper called a watermark. It's a crisscross pattern of tiny lines, and it's not just for looks. That pattern acts like a set of little speed bumps for the burning ember, helping the paper burn slower and more evenly, and stopping those annoying runs where one side burns way faster than the other. Add in a natural tree sap for the glue instead of a synthetic one, and Raw built a paper that felt more natural and premium than the competition. For a lot of smokers who were starting to care about what they were actually putting in their bodies, that natural angle was exactly what they wanted to hear. And it wasn't just rolling papers either. One of Raw's biggest actual product innovations was the pre-rolled cone, which let people skip the rolling process entirely and just pack and smoke. Pre-rolled cones turned into a massive product category for the brand, and Raw's version became the go-to for a huge chunk of the market that wanted convenience without sacrificing that natural feel. So the product was good, but there are plenty of products out there that are good and go nowhere. So what really made Raw explode was two things coming together at the perfect time. The first thing was, it landed right as weed was going mainstream, and people were hunting for natural alternatives to the old bleached white papers. And second, the branding. Because Josh didn't just sell papers, he built an entire lifestyle around them. He turned that simple brown Raw logo into a whole culture. So suddenly, out of nowhere, Raw wasn't just papers. It was rolling trays, hoodies, hats, backpacks, and all kinds of accessories. Owning raw gear became a way to show you were part of the culture. It became the cool, aspirational brand, the one every smoker wanted sitting on their table. Other companies sold you a product. Raw sold you an identity, and that's a much harder thing to compete with. And a huge part of that cool factor came from hip-hop. Raw became deeply tied to rap and celebrity culture. Rappers name-dropped it, and the brand leaned all the way into it. The biggest moment was teaming up with Wiz Khalifa, one of the most famous weed-loving artists in the world, for an official line of Wiz-branded raw papers and trays. Snoop Dogg has also been publicly associated with the brand over the years, and when you've got two of the most famous names in weed culture in your corner, you don't really need a traditional advertising budget. When the most weed-associated rappers on the planet put their names on your papers, that's about as good as marketing gets. Raw even started sponsoring rolling competitions, turning the simple act of rolling a joint into a celebrated skill with its brand front and center. Raw became the rolling paper of hip-hop, and the culture ran with it. But there's another piece of the Raw image that became really central to its marketing, and it is giving back. For years, a huge part of the Raw message was that buying their papers helped fund charity, things like building wells and helping people in need in poorer parts of the world. The idea was that every pack you bought was doing some good. They promoted it heavily, under the banner of something they called the Raw Foundation. It was a feel-good reason to pick Raw over any other brand. But this is where the story takes its turn, because that charity claim, along with several others, ended up at the center of a major lawsuit. A rival rolling paper company ended up taking Raw's parent company to court, and they went after a whole list of Raw's advertising claims, arguing they were false or misleading. And this is the part I really want to get right. So let me walk through carefully what was actually claimed versus what the court actually found. So the single most concrete finding was about where the papers are made. For years, Raw's packaging said the papers were made in Alcoy, Spain. Now, Alcoy has a genuinely famous, centuries-old paper-making history. It's actually where Pepe, widely considered the world's first rolling paper brand, was founded all the way back in 1703. So it's a town with real historical weight in this industry. It's a great story. But the problem is, according to the court, it wasn't really accurate for Raw. The evidence showed the actual paper was mostly being produced in France, and only cut and packaged in a small village in Spain, not truly made in Alcoy the way the marketing implied. The court was pretty blunt about it, finding it was an effort to borrow that town's famous reputation without actually making the paper there. So the romantic image of a Spanish paper mill, according to the court, didn't quite match reality. And then there was that charity claim. When it got examined in court, it turned out there wasn't actually a registered charity called the Raw Foundation, the way the marketing suggested. Now, I want to be fair and precise here, because this part matters. The court also acknowledged that the company did donate real money to charity and did hold charitable events. So it wasn't that the giving was completely fake. It was that the specific way it was presented, as this formal foundation, wasn't accurate. So Raw has since dropped the foundation language and rebranded that effort. So in the end, the court found that Raw's parent company had engaged in unfair competition and violated a state deceptive trade practices law, and it was ordered to stop making a list of those specific claims, including the Alcoy one. And that order was later upheld on appeal and applied nationwide. So those specific marketing claims genuinely got shut down. But I have to give you the other side too, because this was not a total wipeout, and it's only fair to tell it straight. The jury did not find Raw liable on the main federal false advertising claim. And on top of that, Raw's company actually won part of the case, because the jury found that the competitor had copied Raw's packaging, and Raw was awarded over $1 million. On top of that, the competitor had asked the court to hand over tens of millions of dollars of Raw's profits, and the court flatly rejected that. So depending on which side you ask, you'll hear two very different spins on who really won. The honest truth is, it was a genuinely mixed result, with real losses and real wins on both sides. But the bottom line for us is simple. A court did find that several of Raw's specific marketing claims crossed a line, and Raw had to stop making them. Now it's worth mentioning that Raw did score one other clear legal win worth knowing about. In a separate case, courts ruled that Raw rolling papers do not legally count as drug paraphernalia. That was actually a meaningful victory, not just for Raw, but for the whole rolling paper industry. So after all of that, where does Raw stand today? Honestly, right at the top. Despite the lawsuit and the challenged claims, Raw is still one of the most dominant rolling paper and smoking accessory brands on Earth. Estimates put its parent company, HBI International, at around a third of the entire North American rolling paper market, with some estimates putting the brand's global retail footprint at over $1 billion worldwide. The controversy barely slowed it down, and Josh Kesselman is still the face of it, still one of the most recognizable people in the entire weed world, with millions of followers hanging on his every video. And in a wild full-circle moment, in 2025, Josh even bought High Times, the legendary cannabis magazine founded by Tom Forcade back in 1974, that basically defined weed media for decades, when it had fallen on hard financial times. So the once-rated head shop owner ended up owning the most famous name in cannabis publishing. That's how far this thing has come. So at the end of the day, Raw is a fascinating story about the power of branding and about the fine line between great marketing and going too far. Josh Kesselman genuinely built a better-feeling rolling paper and wrapped it in the best lifestyle branding the industry had ever seen. And he turned a simple brown hemp paper into a global empire that took over cannabis culture completely. But the same story also shows what happens when the marketing claims outrun the facts, and a court steps in to draw the line. And it's a reminder to always look a little closer at the story on the package. So, what about you? Are you a Raw person? And did any of this change how you see that little brown pack? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this one, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives like this one, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.